So general essay in the civil service exam plays a very crucial role in scoring high marks, because where you can have the possibility to score at least minimum 140 plus score in the general essay. So as the title itself is saying, it is a general essay, not a specialized essay. So special essays would be there in the subject-wise process. But a general essay will expect the candidate to present the essay in a multiple dimensional process. So there was a question in the 2022 UPSC mains paper, so which is saying that a ship in the harbor. So a ship in the harbor is safe, but that is not what the ship is for. So what does it mean, and how do you handle this? Of course, as my observation goes, since 2017, the examiner has been giving the questions based on the philosophical aspects. And in the 2022 paper, all the 8 questions, 4 in the section A and 4 in the section B, all the 8 questions are based on the philosophical aspects only. Till 2021, there are some questions based on the conceptual aspects. But the 2022 paper is completely only having the philosophical aspects. So the philosophical statement is given, which is connected with an ethical dimension, or a reality of life, or proverbs. They are based on the proverbs. So this statement, what does the statement mean to say? The statement implies that life is a challenge. It is not about the ship. It is all about the life is a challenge. And you are supposed to accept that challenge. And if you prefer to play safe, the life remains boring and useless, just like a ship in the harbor. Why a ship is actually built? A ship is built to sail through the rough waters in the ocean. But if you are keeping the ship in the harbor, you will be safe. But the purpose with which you have built the ship will not be fulfilled. So therefore, a ship is meant to sail through the rough waters. Individuals, organizations, nations, at all the 3 levels, individuals, organizations and the nations should take the calculated risk. Risk doesn't mean that you have to make your life threatened. You have to take a calculated risk. To what extent that you have to take the risk? And taking no risk is the biggest risk for any person. Taking no risk at all. Suppose if a child is not taken a risk, he cannot learn to walk. So a baby boy who is born cannot talk, cannot walk if there is no process of calculated risk. So in such a situation, how this question has to be handled? There are no uniform principles. There is no universal principles for presenting the essay. So line of thinking should be common. The line of thinking should be common in the sense there are 3 structural elements. One is introduction, then main body, and the conclusion. So in the conclusion, you have to start with, for a general essay, a story, a quotation, or a recent event related to the subject given. So you can start with a story really that was existing, or you can create your own story, or an experience that you have experienced in your life related to that particular statement. Or you can also start a general essay with a quotation. The question itself is a quotation, and you can write a quotation to the quotation, which is similar to that quotation. Or you can also mention a recent event that happened. So because everybody will have a different approach. You cannot present the ready-made essays. So if you prepare the ready-made essays, and first possibility is it is not possible that you will get the same concept in the examination. And at the same time, if several people present the same ready-made essay, that will not fetch you good marks. So therefore, keeping these 2 things in view, what all you are supposed to do is, you are supposed to learn how to think about the essay. And there are some uniform processes about thinking about the essay. And one such uniform element to think about the essay is that you have to either start with a story or quotation or a recent incident about the essay, about the given topic. And in the main body, you have to give some multi-dimensional analysis of the given topic. So what is this multi-dimensional analysis of the given topic? The multi-dimensional aspects are those dimensions which a civil servant has to think about. And what is the thinking lineage of a civil service aspirant? Because a civil servant is not merely a servant of the citizen, he is a servant of every person in the society. He should not look after the party which to which that the citizen is belonging to. The citizen is not to be treated from the political perspective. Citizen should be treated as a citizen, that's all, without any political attachments. Therefore, civil servant is also a politically neutral person. When the civil servant is a politically neutral person, he should give a multi-dimensional orientation to what he thinks about. This neutrality of thinking is the primary criteria of presenting the essay. And how this neutrality of thinking is possible? When you look at the issues from the historical point of view, economic point of view, political, geographical, technological, and environmental, moral perspectives. These are the social perspective. The entirety of all these things would be the social perspective. So suppose we think the ongoing issue about the Uniform Civil Code. If you look at the Uniform Civil Code. And the Uniform Civil Code we think only from the point of view of a religious purpose. But there are multi-dimensional aspects related to the Uniform Civil Code. What is that Uniform Civil Code? There should be a same civil legislation for all the religious communities. This is the primary understanding that we have. But it is not merely about the religious communities. The Uniform Civil Code, uniformity in the Civil Code should be there even for the castes within the Hinduism. It should be there, uniformity should be there even among the regions within the nation. Because suppose under Article 371D and E, there is a special status given to Andhra Pradesh. And from Article 370, we have Article 370 which used to given special status to Jammu and Kashmir. And from 371 to 371I, various states are given special status. So within the nation, different regions are also having a special status. And there are various tribal communities. Each community is having a different cultural diversity. So can you bring uniformity across all these dimensions? So a civil servant has to think from all these points of view. There is no single law, there is no similar law for all the religious groups, for all the caste groups within the Hinduism, for all the regions in the country. So for which you need to understand the historical background. You need to understand the cultural background of the people of different communities. Because any disturbance in this process would generate only the tremors in the government. So therefore you have to consider all these aspects before taking any decision. So a civil servant has to think from these points of view. In simple, you just remember the civil service preliminary syllabus, general studies preliminary syllabus. If you remember the civil service preliminary syllabus, you can analyze the things from a multi-dimensional point of view. What are the topics in the civil service preliminary? Current affairs, history, geography, economy, then polity, general science, environment. In addition to that, you can add ethical, that is from taking the issues from ethics paper. So 7 plus 1, 7 topics in the general studies, 1 to be taken from the ethics paper. These are the dimensions, these are the minimum 8 dimensions which you have to analyze through. So in the introduction, you can use the current affairs dimension. In the first paragraph of the main body, historically, begin with the historical dimension. Because any issue, any topic should be started with the historical background. Then you can go into the geographical background, then economic, political. So that is the way in which you have to analyze the things in a multi-dimensional way. The 360-degree approach to the general essay can be derived from this perspective. So in the conclusion, another uniformity that you can remember is, you should show a ray of hope for the future. It should always be positive and looking forward, forward-looking approach. So the forward-looking approach means that you should see some kind of ray of hope for the futuristic aspect. So the brainstorming analysis of the concepts should be based on contemporary, historical, geographical, economic, political, then social, ethical and technological aspects. These are the multiple aspects. These aspects should not be written as side headings, remember again. Suppose if you are writing a historical background, you should not write historical background as a side heading. So your line of thought should be started with, in the historically looking, the following are the aspects. The starting line itself should contain the term historical background. It should not be converted into a side heading. So, and further, these dimensions have to be substantiated with proper argumentation. And what is the substantiation of the arguments? Your answer must be substantiated by relevant examples, facts, statistics, flowcharts, diagrams, etc. So, all these things will together will be assumed as a kind of PPT presentation. Just like an executive, a marketing executive or a political executive will express his ideas through a PPT presentation in a graphical manner. In the same manner, your essay should also be like a PPT presentation, which should be clear and brief, summarized with suitable examples, suitable diagrams, facts and statistics. So when all these presented in the essay, then it will improve the value of the essay, because the conceptual analysis is like a flow of thought. And to prove that conceptual analysis, to prove your point, if you are writing an example, if you are giving a fact, if you are giving some statistics, if you are presenting your idea in a flow chart or a diagram, that would improve the value of the essay. Where you have to get only 50% marks, you would be getting 60% marks. So suppose for this question, a ship in the harbor is safe, but that is not what a ship is for. So what introduction, if I am in your place, I would be writing about India emerging as the 5th largest economy in the world, and it is also having targeted to become the 3rd largest economy in the world by the year 2047. So it is not merely staying in the harbor. We have India's economic growth has been known as the Hindu growth rate. So what was that Hindu growth rate? The Hindu growth rate stands for, in simple they say that if you go one step ahead, it will bring you back 2 steps. So where, because of this kind of Hindu growth rate, we will not move to anywhere. There is no possibility of moving to anywhere. So from around 2012 and 13, we have started this approach towards the, how to move forward. So because of which India has moved from 12th position in the world economy to the 5th largest economy. And recently when the Prime Minister of India visited America, even in his speech addressed to the Senate also, he was saying that India is intended to become the 3rd largest economy in the world. So that would not be merely possible by staying in the harbor. You have to take some initiatives. You have to take some risks. You have to venture at the global level and taking the adventurous decisions. Even reaching the 5th largest economy would not be possible unless you have taken the risky decisions, calculated risk decisions. So that should be in the main body. And in the introduction, in the main body should contain It should contain some various dimensions of the essay, like so these are like a cue ball in a pool game, which gives impetus to your to get generated, ideas to get generated. So these dimensions are like historical dimension, if you say that historical dimension, to be started with. So what does the historical dimension contains? Saying that in the past, how it was experienced. Success of various people in the past, in the history, would not be possible if they stay to the, if they don't dare to take any risks. Suppose Indus Valley civilization would not have flourished if the Indus Valley people have thought from this point of view. So suppose India was the first country in the world. In fact, India is the first country, first civilization in the world. Indus Valley civilization was the first civilization to start a world trade, global trade. And similarly, the ventures of Ashoka, then Babur, Akbar, Aurangzeb, Shivaji, and for that matter even East India Company, they did not remain only on the harbour. They gone beyond the harbour. So they went on to become the world leaders in their field. And that is what the historical background about. Suppose from the geographical point of view, geographical and environmental perspectives can be written together. So suppose if you look at the Indian foreign policy reaching the unreached areas. Suppose in the recent times we are focusing on the Africa, the African continent, and also Arabian region. So these are the areas which earlier we did not focus on. And for that matter, since 1991, the Look East policy, the Look West policy in the recent times, Make in India campaign, then accepting the global leadership table. These are all the geographical outreach programs. Look East policy means a policy towards the East Asian countries. Then Look West policy. Then we are also in the year 2014 we have also initiated this program called Make in India campaign, whereby the Prime Minister himself visited almost all the 190 countries in the world to invite the people from those countries to invest in India. Invest in India, sell anywhere in the world. And now because of these dimensions, apart from this, India is also accepting the global leadership table. What is this global leadership table to be accepted? Meaning that we have accepted the leadership of the G20, we have accepted the SUO, leadership of the SUO now, and we are fighting for the even permanent seat in the Security Council. So this is the global leadership table. This is the geographical aspect. Then economic dimension. Economically, what kind of calculated risks are necessary? Because calculated risks are necessary to initiate any business. Suppose till the arrival of the East India Company and their introduction of the education system in India, English education system in India in 1854, every person living in India was an entrepreneur. Because people were not looking for the government jobs. People were not looking for any corporate jobs. People were looking only for people finding their career only in their own caste-related professions. Thereby, every family was having entrepreneurs. So in India, even today also, joint family business are popular. Why joint family business are popular? Because it is in our culture. But after the introduction of the English education by the East India Company, gradually this entrepreneurialism has come down. When the entrepreneurialism has come down, people were looking only for the youth is looking only for the jobs. So economically, we would not be successful unless we venture into something. And from 1947 to 1990, Indian economy was based on the socialistic perspective. But in 1991, we have adopted the LPG policy. A sudden shift away from socialistic approach to capitalistic approach in 1991 is completely a new risk that Indian economy has taken. A complete and new risk. And similarly, during the lockdown period in 2020, every country in the world was suffering with these issues, economic issues. But what India has done, India has attained self-sustainability. We have adopted Atmanirbhar package. So, Atmanirbhar Bharat program, this Atmanirbhar Bharat program is not merely about the self-reliance. It is beyond the self-reliance. Fulfilling our needs as well as fulfilling the requirements of the world as well. So, suppose if you look at the vaccine policy, the vaccine policy not only fulfilled the requirements of the Indians, but we have also contributed the vaccines to 90 other countries in the world. So, this is the nature of the Atmanirbhar. The Atmanirbhar program, Bharat program, means that we fulfill our needs as well as fulfill the needs of the others as well, going beyond the self-reliance. Similarly, at the individual and organizational levels, startups ventures, Startup India venture. So, the startup companies are also the example of how a ship is built for, not merely staying in the harbor. Because when you are initiating a startup company, you are taking a calculated risk with a new idea, an innovative idea, by the use of the technology, by fulfilling, with an intention to fulfill the needs of the people. Suppose if a person from Karimnagar has initiated a startup company like Red Bus, nobody thought that it could be sold out for 700 crores. So, because there was a need for the people, and that need was fulfilled by this new venture. And in 2014, there were only 400 to 500 startup companies. But today, India is the home for the 108 unicorn startup companies. Only unicorn startup companies are 108. And nearly there are more than 80,000 startup companies. What is a unicorn company? A unicorn company is the one which has attained $100 billion turnover valuation. So, it would not be possible without a political environment, political supporting environment. When there is a political supporting environment, then the people will also venture into the new things, and it will change the culture of a nation. Just like the British East India Company with their education policy has changed the India's culture from entrepreneurialism to employment. Now we are on the process of changing this colonial culture from employment orientation to entrepreneurialism. Then another dimension, technological dimension. So, what are the technological dimension that you can mention? Is suppose in this dimension, creating a space economy. In 1960, when India's space program has started, we have taken the rocket in Sriharikota on a bicycle. Rocket spare parts were taken to the launching pad on a bicycle. From that level, today we are offering business services in the space economy to various countries around the world. India is only the 6th country among the world, in the world, which is offering the space economy. Business services in the space economy. That is one aspect that you can write. Adopting new technologies for the new generations. What are the new technologies that were adopted in the new generation? Including artificial intelligence, 3D technology, 3D printing technology, or blockchain technology. So, they are all the new technologies that were adopted for the new generation. And we are not remaining in the harbor. If you remain in the harbor, our life will be like a Nokia company. Nokia did not venture into the adoption of the new technology. When the remaining competitive companies are taking to the new technologies. As a result, the Nokia company, which is almost like a pioneer in the cell phone business, got extinguished from the market. Similarly, Deccan Airlines. Deccan Airlines were the first airlines in the country that has offered air travel for 1 rupee. But where is the Deccan Airlines today? It has got extinguished because it could not adapt itself to the changing requirements of the customers. And involving the private ventures in the various techno spaces, particularly in the space technology, in the defense technology. Once upon a time, in India, defense technology was only confined to the government production. Government production means in the government defense production units only, there were 31 ordnance factories. And only within these 31 ordnance factories, the government was producing the manufacturing the arms and ammunition. But today, almost 20,000 startup companies were established in the private companies, as the private companies, producing the arms and ammunition in the defense technology. And there are mega organizations also, bigger organizations also, like Adani Group, Tatas, Ashok Leyland. These are also participating in the defense production. And we are also having strategic partnerships with foreign companies. Strategic partnerships means with the foreign companies like Israel, companies from the Israel. Rafael is one company from Israel which is providing the defense technologies for India. Kalyani Rafael is another a new company that is being established. Kalyani is an Indian company, Rafael is an Israeli company. Together they are manufacturing the drones required for the defense department. So involving the private ventures in the technological perspective in various sections. If you keep yourself within your limits, India would not become an arms exporter to Russia today. Till 2020, India was the largest importer of the arms. But now, 85% of these arms and ammunition were imported from Russia only. After the beginning of this Russia-Ukraine war, India became the exporter of arms and ammunition to Russia. And from 2014 till date, India's arms and ammunition export, defense exports, have grown by 385%, not 1% or 10% or 100%. They grown by the 385%. So all this indicating that involving the private ventures in the technology would bring the change, necessary change. And during the pandemic period, another example, during the pandemic period, we have witnessed how edutech companies have grown up. Edutech companies means education once upon a time classically known as only an activity in the classroom. But today, the people started adopting technologies, and because of this technology adoption, online education has become a new normal in the country. For everything, from KG to PG, everything, there is an online platform. And it is also one of the new initiatives that was possible because of an emergency, because of a crisis. So that is the technological perspective. Then what is the political perspective? The political perspective, you can give the examples like when Russia-Ukraine war has begun. India did not sat on its fence. Earlier, under the non-alignment movement, if somebody is fighting, we were not taking any sides. And today also we were not taking the sides. But we are sitting on our ground. We are supporting the global peace. We are neither supporting Russia nor supporting Ukraine, despite a heavy political pressure from the European Union and America. European Union and America were politically forcing us to take a side. Either you support Russia or you support Ukraine. And with the pressure that India has to support Ukraine for imposing a pressure on Russia to withdraw from the war. But what we did instead, we have neither supported Russia nor supported Ukraine, but we are getting benefited from the war. We look for the global peace. It is not like we eat the things from the blood of the Ukrainians. But what we have to do is, we have all the according to the rules and regulations of the global politics, we are playing now. And we don't accept, we just condemn whatever the criticism, political criticism comes from various parts of the world. So suppose we have been the largest importer of the oil today, till the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war. But today, India is the largest exporter of oil to European Union. Not to the entire world, but to the European Union. We are buying crude oil, almost 1 lakh barrel per day. We are buying 1 lakh barrel per day from Russia, crude oil. And that is being put for a lot of processes. And finally, we are manufacturing a petrol or diesel. And that is being manufactured processed crude oil is being sent to European Union. That is according to the law only. The law, the rules and regulations put forth by European Union itself. So using those rules and regulations, we have done this. So that means we sat on our own ground very stiffly. Another example that you can take is further from the political point of view. Repealing the special status to Jammu and Kashmir. This is the situation. 2019, the state of Jammu and Kashmir is being bifurcated into two union territories. Article 370 is not repealed. Article 370 remains the same. People say Article 370 is abolished, but it is not being repealed. Article 370 will remain intact. Only the state of Jammu and Kashmir is being bifurcated into union territories. And when there is no state of Jammu and Kashmir at all, where is the relevance of Article 370? By converting the state into a union territory, the relevance of Article 370 is gone. So this is the right situation where the special status of Jammu and Kashmir has been removed. This will give way for the government even to take over the Pak-occupied Kashmir as well. The Pak-occupied Kashmir will also be taken over in the very soon. And this is the right time. You can also give the example, another example. This is the right time to enact Uniform Civil Code. So this is because for 75 years we remained on the harbor, but nothing has been achieved by not enacting Uniform Civil Code. So let us see what will happen if Uniform Civil Code is enacted. Take a calculated risk. What is that calculation in the taking the risk in the Uniform Civil Code? The calculation is involve every community. Take the opinion of every community. Convince the communities, different communities, to accept the Uniform Civil Code. Make necessary changes in the coming years if anybody is having still objections. So without taking this risk of enacting a Uniform Civil Code, you cannot establish an egalitarian society characterized by the rule of law. A society characterized by the rule of law, equality, Article 14 is talking about equality. All are equal before the law. But because of the absence of the Uniform Civil Code, there is no equality. It need not be absolute equality. It may be based on the relevant changes in the equality, relevant exemptions in the equality. So Uniform Civil Code can be enacted by considering the cultural background of various communities. So since there may be opposition from some communities, you cannot remain without enacting a Uniform Civil Code. You need to take the risk right now. And this is the time to take the risk. And strategically, strategic dimension. Another dimension is the strategic dimension. That is related to the security perspective. Suppose in 2016, India has organized surgical strikes on Pakistan. Is a strategic decision taken by the government of India. Because earlier if a terrorist act has happened in India, what the government would be doing, the government would have condemned it and a home minister would be resigned. In 2008, Mumbai terrorist attacks, the same thing has happened. When terrorists have attacked India, what the government of India has done? The government of India has just condemned the action and imposed certain limitations on the Pakistan, and Pakistani cricket team was prevented from coming to India. All those irrelevant things have happened. But today, Indian government is not looking the things as such. It is retaliating, taking the risk, and that too calculated risk. So this India's surgical strikes is a classic example of how strategically we are acting, but by not remaining on the harbor. And another example you can give is India's support to global crisis and disasters. In the 2023, when there was a cyclone in Syria and Turkey, India has extended its support to those countries. From 2014 to 2023, almost we have organized 12 operations as such. Operation Shakti is an example for that. So these are the dimensions that you have to analyze. And after that, you have to analyze some issues also. Issues like, what are the challenges in behaving like that? What is the challenge when you went into the sea by leaving the seashore? Like, there is an absence of a brave political leadership. Because of the absence of brave political leadership, India could not become the permanent member of the UN Security Council when it has got the opportunity from Asia. In 1950s itself, India was offered a seat in the permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. But India's Prime Minister rejected it and asked China to take up the responsibility. This is the absence of a brave political leadership. But today, when we have such brave leadership, political leadership, there is a possibility to venture into such things. Wherever there is an absence of a brave political leadership, that would be a big challenge. Secondly, a bureaupathology is another challenge. What is that bureaupathology? Bureaupathology means a bureaucratic evil. Bureaucratic evil is like postponing the things, which is called red tapeism. A bureaucratic pathology includes corruption. And because of these kind of behavior on part of the bureaucracy, Japan did not invest in India for 25 years. Though Indian economy was opened for the global world, global economy, in 1991 through the LPG policy. From 1991 to 2014, Japan never invested in India because of the bureaucratic evils that were existing in the country. And when in 2014, during this program called Make in India campaign, when the Prime Minister has promised Japan that such kind of bureaucratic evils will be eliminated, then only they have invested in India in two major projects. One is bullet train project and the other is a 100 smart city project. So that is how bureaupathology has prevented Japan from investing in India. Inadequate budget allocation, because suppose in the recent times we have initiated certain infrastructure development programs like Bharat Mala, Sagar Mala, and these require a lot of budgetary allocation. And if there is no proper budget, it is impossible to improve the development. And it is like, suppose if America is developed, why America is developed? America was developed because of the roads. People think that roads are good in America because America is a developed country. But actually the reality is opposite. Because the roads are developed, America is a rich country. So you need to develop a lot of infrastructure. Development of the infrastructure requires the budgetary allocation. And inadequate budget allocation so far has been the biggest challenge in achieving the new things. And lack of entrepreneurialism among the people, particularly the youth. As I told you already, in 1854 with the Macaulay Committee recommendations, a new civil service examination system was adopted. In 1810, new education policy was adopted. And this new education policy coupled with new civil service recruitment scheme, totally the people in India, the youth in India, was diverted from entrepreneurialism to employment generation, employment seekers. So this has become a culture in India. And anybody in this country, 350 million, when the 350 million people are middle class people, all these middle class people would be looking for safe salary. What is that safe salary? Every month you should get 1 lakh rupees or 50,000 rupees, with which you pay half of the amount for the EMIs. Another 1/4 would be paid for the rent, house rent. You will be happy with the remaining 1/4. So this is the tendency that is being developed as a cultural behavior on part of the people in India. Even most of us would be studying MBA. And what is MBA? Master of Business Administration. And why do you study MBA? So that you wanted to become a businessman. But instead of businessman, these MBA schools, they are not developing the entrepreneurial skills. Business schools are developing only employment skills. You become a marketing executive, you become a financial manager, but not a businessman. Who will be the businessman? A businessman will be most uneducated person. or illiterate person or less educated person. That's all. Adani is not an MBA graduate, not necessarily. Ambani is not necessarily an MBA graduate, but they are holding the business empires. And all these MBA graduates are working as the employees with those people. So this is the variation that we are seeing, is because of lack of entrepreneurialism. Even when, suppose, even a fresh graduate announces in his family that he wanted to initiate some business, then everybody will be erupted against him. So that is the kind of nature that is existing in this society. This lack of entrepreneurialism among the youth. And the national culture that supports only the safe play. Even in the games also, in the sports field also, usually parents will not encourage their children to participate in the sports. But when you are taking the sport as an education, as your career, you are going in a different dimension. So this kind of, if the very basic decision, like after the 10th class, if the child wanted to take the HEC, that frightens the parents. If you do not take MPC as your group, your life is spoiled. So that is the kind of attitude that is existing among the people. So because everybody wanted to stay on the harbor only, they don't want to go into the rough waters by taking a new dimension. It is not a new dimension also. It is natural that a ship is built to went into the ocean, not to remain on the harbor. So these are the challenges that are usually observable. And finally, in the conclusion, what you need to say? Need for taking risk is inevitable in the life. Because when you are growing as an individual, you are supposed to take the risks. It is inevitable. You cannot avoid the risk. Whatever the things that you are doing, every new thing in your life is the risk itself. Suppose when you are learning bicycle for the first time in your life, is it not a risk? If you do not learn the bicycle, you cannot ride a bike. If you cannot ride a bike, you cannot drive a car. So the transformation is necessary. Risk is inevitable. But the risk must be calculated. What is that calculated risk? Suppose when you are learning a bicycle, you ask your parents or you ask your elder brother to support you. That is a calculation because you are taking a risk. And go beyond the comfort zone is the order of the day. That should be the preference of your life. Go beyond the comfort zone. If you remain in the comfort zone, you remain comfortable, but as I told you in the introduction part itself, taking no risk is the biggest risk. If you remain in the comfort zone, you will be falling in the uncomfortable zone. Therefore, even the retired employees also doing some kind of activity. So without doing anything, if you spend your life is ended. So that kind of conclusion may be given. So that is even if it is a philosophical essay, your essay should contain these multiple dimensions. Suppose from this point of view, at the individual level we have discussed, at the national level we have discussed, at the international level we have discussed. And finally, the combination of all these things in the life is the life philosophy, that's all. Learning the new things when you are taking the risks. Every failure is like a new lesson. Failure is not a collapse. Failure is a new lesson. And one has to be ready with these things. So this is the kind of approach towards the general essays. So an essay should present these multiple dimensions of presentation in the form of an introduction or a main body and conclusion. The main body should contain all these aspects, like contemporary aspect, historical, geographical, economic, political, then technological, social and ethical dimension. The preliminary syllabus, if you keep in mind, apart from the preliminary syllabus, bring in that part in the ethics paper also, the ethical dimension. that would fulfill the requirements of all the requirements of this, right?